Hey everybody, it's Terramaster from Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy, making my YouTube debut. In case you don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy is a Discord where we do Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments. We do 3 tournaments at minimum per month. We do speed duels, we do gimmick tournaments, such as the one I'm going to talk about here, and also do older TCG formats of Yu-Gi-Oh! And we also have a monthly ranking system, where the more of our tournaments you enter, and then the more you top, the more you win, the more chances you have to get points on that monthly leaderboard. And as of right now, we're giving away $10 USD per month in prizes, and sometimes on individual tournaments, I'll also put up a small little cash prize for that too. Like for this one, for example. The first tournament we had in June, when we got started, our first month in June, was a Highlander speed duel tournament. And I gave $5 as a prize for that one individually, as well as it counted toward the monthly ranking prize. So first I'm going to explain the Highlander format for those who may not know. I do believe the concept is for Magic the Gathering. It's what my friend who plays Magic has told me, as well as the Google machine also gave me the same result. So for all you Magic players, you might be more familiar with it than everybody else. But another example that I can relate to a lot more, since I never played Magic the Gathering, is Hearthstone. In Hearthstone, there was a point in time where a popular card that was played in a popular deck was called Reno Jackson. And you can read the card here. It says, if your deck has no duplicates, fully heal your hero. So that's really the Highlander concept in a nutshell, is no duplicate cards in your deck, no copies, one of each. So every card in your deck is individually unique. It's just something different to shake up the same old constructed sort of meta. And that's why I like doing gimmick tournaments in general. So for speed duels specifically, your Highlander rules are as follows. You do a best 2 out of 3, but there's no side deck, and your decks must be 25 cards exactly. And that comes from 20 being the minimum, 30 being the maximum. So you take the number in between, 25 unique cards in your deck with no ability to side in or out. You just have to go and win 2 out of 3 with what you have. And you can have an extra deck, and you might be thinking, why would that be relevant unless you're playing a fusion deck, which aren't very good in speed duels right now. But as you'll see in one of our replays in one of our top 8 decks, actually, it can be relevant right now. So that's enough of you listening to me talk about not a duel. So let's get into me talking about what is actually a duel. And our first replay is from our top 8. It was Discord player Blaze, who's down here as MSD12, and Discord player Isate, who's up here as Isate1. So let's go. I do believe Blaze won the rock, paper, scissors. Isate is going first, so Blaze chose to go second, as people typically do in all speed duels right now. So he sets 1, sets 2 back row, passes. Here's Blaze drawing. Return, sets 2, sets 3 back row and a monster. Interesting enough, they're both set Zombina on first turn. So even though there's only one Zombina in both their decks, they both opened it. I don't know if I'm the only one that's had this experience, but I find Zombina is glued to your opening hand in speed duels more often than not. Anyway, Isate gets his turn again. He draws Night Beam, plays it immediately on that middle card, as Decade from Duel Links meta says, always choose the middle. There goes Floodgate Trap Hole. Then he activates Dust Tornado. That's interesting. Usually Dust Tornado is used during the end phase. Maybe he wanted to see what he drew. Maybe he wanted to wait for something like a Nightmare Wheel or Zoma to flip face up. But once he drew Night Beam, he decided might as well just take out 2 out of the 3 back row while I have the chance, especially since he was going to tribute summon Hades right here. Anyway, so Hades here is cannot be special summoned, so he tribute summoned it, and then negates the effects of monsters destroyed or battle with fiend type monsters you control, including itself. So it'll negate the effect of whatever that card is. Now in this case, it just so happens to be Zombina, which wouldn't have done anything anyway as we look at Blaze's graveyard. So, turn pass, on to Blaze again. Now another interesting thing I said before, he chose not to use the Dust Tornado again on that face down during the end phase. Now maybe that's because that card had already been set previously. The reason you do Dust Tornado in the end phase sometimes is because they can't chain a card that they just set. Do Gokipon and set it. Now Gokipon, the reason he's running this is primarily to search for Parasite Paranoid. Hades attacks directly, Blaze takes the hit since Michizuri or Dust Tornado can't really do anything to stop that. Blaze gets his turn back. Now he decides to Dust Tornado it. He probably does that now because he's finally going to choose to attack since he did draw a monster worth attacking with. Sets that skill successor. Summons that Gaia. Unfortunately, skill successor on the field will only give you a boost of 400, which will not push that Gaia past that Hades. But if that was a gap, which is only 2200 instead of a Hades, it would have worked out. Not that I'm going to spoil whether or not Isate plays Gap in his deck as well, but there you have it, right there. The Gokipon got run over, and he searched for a Parasite, as you would. But he does also run other cards that you can search with the Gokipon, as you'll probably see in this duel. Yep, there's one right there in the opening hand. Maneater Bug. So again, opening play, he chooses to set the Gokipon, not the Maneater Bug. It's probably because he wants it to get run over so that he can go ahead and add his Parasite to his hand. And Blaze once again did not open a summonable monster. Last time he did open Zombina, but it got run over pretty quickly. But he did open 3 pretty decent traps, so let's see what happens this time. So Isate draws a Zoma, sets it, chooses not to summon Gaia and be aggressive, but sets the Maneater Bug. And there's Midoriya as a draw for Blaze. He sets and passes, so both players being pretty passive here. Let's see who's the first one to attack. Now Blaze's passiveness might be based on that he's afraid of Cocoon of Ultra Evolution, because if you leave a monster face up and he happens to have Parasite, he's going to immediately get cocooned into a moth, or so he thinks. And there's Maneater Bug popping it, and here's Gaia, so he's finally going to go ahead and go for the attack here. Now, interesting enough, when he summoned Gaia, he chose not to activate Floodgate Trap Hole. I wonder if that's because he's planning on Nightmare Reeling it, or he's planning on activating Forceful Checkpoint. Let's see. Indeed, he does activate the checkpoint. He will discard the moth. Now, the interesting thing about that decision is, yes, it does get rid of the moth from his hand, taking away the ability to summon 2 big insects when you use your Cocoon of Ultra Evolution with your Parasite. So then he's going to also put Nightmare Wheel on the Gaia. Was there an attack with Maneater Bug? Did I miss that? I think Isate just chose not to attack with Maneater Bug because... I get it. Because it's probably too cheap of a counter to give on that Twisted Personality. That's actually a very smart play. Here's standby phase. He loses 500. Sets a card. And ends his turn. That set card was Dust Tornado. He chose not to set the offerings. I think he thinks he's not worried about a monster on the field right now to destroy because he's already got that Gaia locked up. And here's why I said it was an interesting decision to go ahead and discard the moth, because while it does stop the double moth play, what it does do is it throws an insect into their graveyard so that they can basically just shuffle it back with the second part of the skill and draw a card. So anytime you put an insect into your opponent's graveyard early, you're kind of giving them a free draw, but you have to think about it as now half their skill is done, it's used up, they can't use it again since each of the 2 skills is only once per duel. Anyway, now Isate decided to go full-on aggressive and attacks with 800 damage. So he does give him a counter just for 800 damage, and he goes ahead and gives him the counter for 450 this time as well, giving him 4 total. Then he passes the turn over. Blaze draws Michizuri again. There's another 500. I think his logic that time was that he's going to get another counter from Nightmare Wheel's burn damage anyway, so I might as well get this damage in now that he knows Nightmare Wheel was a thing. But he knew Nightmare Wheel was a thing last time too. However, last time he had 0 counters, and he was only going to get 1 from the Nightmare Wheel, if that makes any sense. So let me just real quick go off on an explanation of Twisted Personality and how I see Twisted Personality. You have to think of it, you always have to keep track of the number of counters either you have or your opponent has based on who's playing Twisted Personality, because that's kind of how you win the game. Because like for Nightmare Wheel, for example, you can easily control the counters, right? So you know Blaze is going to get one counter from Nightmare Wheel on his standby phase unless you destroy the Nightmare Wheel, which I don't think he has a way to do right now. He doesn't. So you know he's going to get a counter. So you have to think about it as, okay, so if he has just that one counter, he can't do anything with one counter. But I think the thinking that time was he's going to have 2 anyway, so I might as well get the damage in and give him 3, since I don't think he's really concerned about the 3 counter effect right now, since he would either destroy a Gaia, which is trapped anyway, or a tiny insect, which, you know, probably doesn't care about. So what he does is he removes 2 counters and discards a random card from his hand, which was a Yomi ship. The Blaze still has no monster, so he just passes turn over. And now Isate drew another one of those cards you can search with Gokipon, which is Golden Ladybug, adds 500 life points to his total, and then goes ahead and attacks again, since he was going to get a second counter anyway from Nightmare Wheel once again. He goes ahead and gets the damage in while he can, especially now that he's going to be under 2k at 1500. Now Blaze activates a Dust Tornado, and that card was not newly set, so he went ahead and Dust Tornadoed it now rather than saving it or doing it later. Interesting. And he draws Charging Gaia, and he's going to do the 2 counter effect again for Twisted Personality, and he got the Ladybug. There's Gaia, and sets that Offerings to Doom he's been holding on to. The Gaia will swing into the Mater Bug for potentially pretty big chunk of damage. He does, gets another counter and Twisted Personality from that. Ends the turn, and that zone is now clear for a Zoma. But Blaze activates Floodgate Trap Hole. There's a little ruling dispute here, and I believe the ruling is that you can Floodgate Zoma, but it would go back in the smell and trap card zone. So smelly, that zone. It goes back in the smell, I said it again, the spell and trap card zone, and it can't be activated the same turn that it went back there. So if he did it during the end phase, he would have to activate it, Isate would during his turn, whereas Zoma would have to stay in defense mode. So it's still not a bad play, even though it doesn't lock down the Zoma as it's shown here, unless I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, correct me, call me an idiot, do whatever you need to do. Anyways, turn passes over to Blaze again, as Isate just set Meta Reflect Slime, which you drew and passed. Blaze tops decks a Blaze Knight, sets that Michizuri he had, summons a Gap the Divine Soldier, which is interesting because the way they were playing it, which was that Zoma was locked down. But he's going to go ahead and take out that Gokipon, but nope. Sphere Kuribo activates, stopping the attack. Now how this interaction works is also interesting, is that Sphere Kuribo, as far as I know, will stop the attack from Gap, switching into defense mode for like a second, and then Gap will immediately switch back, since Gap's effect of all monsters being changed to face-up attack position is continuous. Anyway, let's keep going. Isate draws the Night Beam again, activates that, and targets that card right there. And Blaze decided not to activate the Offerings to the Doomed in chain, because Michizuri wasn't something you could chain to that anyway. Zoma will go ahead and try to Suicide Crash into Gap so that Zoma's effect will activate, which is when it's destroyed by battle, it inflicts damage equal to the attack of the monster that killed it. But now he'll use the Offerings on it. And then Isate will admit defeat because he didn't really have a way to get past Gap. Once the Zoma was gone, he only had 1,000 life points. Once Gap attacks the Gokipon, he is going to be done anyway. So here we go. Game 3. The first top 8 match of the tournament is going to a Game 3. This is what we live for, right? Anyway, here comes Gilgarth and a Dust Tornado face down. Also a Zoma face down turn 1 from Blaze. Golden Ladybug in the opening hand for Isate. He's going to be gaining 500 life points every turn until Blaze manages to hit that Ladybug again, or Isate's forced to play it onto the field. Isate sets a Blast Sphere along with a Michizuri, Kunai with Chain, and Nightmare Wheel. There's a Dust Tornado activating in the end phase as I discussed earlier. He rolls a dice to really randomly select a card, picks the middle, always pick the middle. There's Kunai with Chain gone, activates a Zoma at the end phase, and Zoma comes out in defense mode. Blaze draws a Floodgate Trap Hole. He will switch Zoma into attack mode, summon a Eudoria, set the Floodgate into battle phase, full aggro here, swings with the Gilgarth, gets hit with the Nightmare Wheel, swings with the Zoma, Blast Sphere activates. You know, that Nightmare Wheel was interesting because he had Blast Sphere right there. Now think about it, if after Nightmare Wheel, if Blaze decides to attack with Eudoria, your Blast Sphere gets attached to your Midoriya and does 600 less damage and also gets rid of a weaker monster. But I feel like he knew that since he was attacking with an 1800 at first, he would most likely attack with the other 1800 again, and he wanted the Blast Sphere on the Zoma. So that's a pretty big play, which a lot of thought went into. Here's Midoriya attacking, does a 1200 damage, grabs a counter, ends turn. Isate draws that Night Beam again, gains a 500 from the Golden Ladybug, deals 500 burn damage from Nightmare Wheel. Right there, he does have to set the Golden Ladybug or else he would be in a bit of trouble, considering he has 2 counters here on Twisted Personality, so he could discard a card from his hand anyway, so there's a 50% chance Ladybug would have been gone anyway. And then he's going to attack with two not big monsters, but 2 monsters here for a total of 3k damage. And there goes Blast Sphere, exploding Zoma. And they're having an argument about which Blast Sphere hit. Blast Sphere does do the 1800 damage, since Blast Sphere specifically says equal to the attack the destroyed monster had on the field. Zoma did have 1800 on the field. And let's see what Blaze decides to do now, as he does 3 counters remove to pop the Nightmare Wheel. He got the 3rd counter because of the Blast Sphere burn damage. It's a good strategy there. He goes into battle phase. He will use Gilgarth to attack, even though he knew that was a Golden Ladybug. He decided to use Gilgarth to attack it. And I believe the reason for that, well, no, there's Highlander. There should only be, I believe that he hasn't used Zoma yet. I believe that because if that face down card happens to be a Zoma, and he attacks with Gilgarth first, then there's no chance Gilgarth will have to swing into Zoma, and he can take it out and still have some life points left. That's the reason I think he went ahead and used Gilgarth right there. But Adamichizuri Isate did, kills the Zombina, which once again doesn't do anything because there's nothing in the graveyard for it to target. 1200, gets a counter. 26, Isate will be top decking a Gokipon, activates a Night Beam on Floodgate, sets the Gokipon, activates the Cocoon of Ultra Evolution, the 2nd skill to shuffle an insect back into your deck and draw a card, draws a Sphere Karibo, which is actually very important because Blaze would have had lethal had he not drawn some way to block one of the attacks here. Blade Knight attacks the Gokipon, allowing him to search for the Parasite Paranoid. Sphere Karibo saves his life, and Blaze, I think, forgot to attack the Midoriya, which is pretty funny. Although it may be inconsequential here, as Parasite attaches itself to Blade Knight. He draws Dust Tornado, sets it, summons the Moth with the Cocoon of Ultra Evolution skill, attacks with Moth into the Midoriya, dealing enough damage for lethal, and that is good game, ladies and gentlemen. So that was the first replay. That's our first video. Let us know what you think. Let me know what you think of me and my explaining. Am I over-explaining? Am I under-explaining? Should I go through the cards in more detail, or should I shut up and just let the duel go on? Anyway, Terramaster out.